I've seen a lot of videos and articles on the things you should do before you turn 20, but I haven't really found any on the things you shouldn't do before you turn 20, and that got me thinking about the things that I am glad I didn't do in my teens, and today I wanted to share some of those things with you all. Now, this is of course my personal list. It doesn't mean that you're in the wrong or that you're a bad person for doing or not doing any of these things. It's just the things that I am glad I didn't do based on my life and what I would consider to be generally good life advice. Okay, let's get started. I'm glad I didn't start drinking alcohol excessively at a young age. Now, I don't think there's anything wrong with experimenting with alcohol when you're 18 or 21 if you're in the States. But if it gets to a point where you feel like you need it or you're craving it, then it's gotten beyond that. And thanks to the choices that I made, I today have a healthy relationship to alcohol. I'm glad I never started smoking cigarettes and that I never got into drugs. Most of my friends were smokers. It was one of those everyone is doing it type of things. But to this day, I haven't tried it and I don't intend to. I'm glad hookup culture never hooked me. And I did film a video for my Patreon page talking more about my personal experience with hookup culture. So if you're interested, you can check that out. I am glad I didn't spend money heavily. I've always been good at saving up and budgeting and calculating my expenses. And because of that, I could go to university without going into debt, which, by the way, is another thing I am glad I didn't do. It was one of my earliest financial goals. I do, however, need to point out that there's no university fee in Sweden, which is where I went to university. So, yeah, college in Sweden is basically free. So I'm in no way comparing my situation with someone who has to go to university in, for example, the United States, where the tuition fee is absolutely ridiculous. In Sweden, however, there are living expenses, housing, course literature, travel expenses, etc. Speaking of finances, I am glad I didn't get a credit card before I could handle having a credit card. Now, most people don't get their credit cards that young. I think the average age in the United States is 20. However, I do still think it's worth throwing in here. It's so easy to ruin your credit if you don't know what you're doing, and a lot of young adults don't fully understand credit cards and credit scores and debt, so waiting until you are financially disciplined is definitely a good idea, I would say. I'm glad I didn't hesitate letting go of toxic people. Now, being in your teens can be really tough. You don't really have an identity and you don't really know what's good for you and what's not, and it's all about exploring and getting to know yourself. And the last thing you want during that period is to be without friends and being an outsider, which is why a lot of the times we'll rather stay in a group of toxic friends than to be the loner. And I completely understand that. We're human beings. We make all kinds of foolish decisions because we don't want to be lonely. However, the sooner you realize that there are other people out there that you can be friends with, people that are actually good for you, and people that you will actually want to stay friends with once you graduate, the sooner you can let those toxic people go. And finally, I am glad I didn't turn my back on my parents. I prioritize spending time with them, and as teens, we often take that quality time for granted and will rather hang out with our friends because it's more enjoyable, or I don't know, because it's embarrassing to hang out with your mom on a Saturday. But looking back, I definitely think that I found the right balance, and I'm really grateful for that today. And those were some of the things that I am glad I didn't do before 20. Or ever, really. I just needed a title for this video. Now, I would love to hear from you. What is something that you are glad you didn't do in your teens? Please comment down below. Now, if you would like to support this channel, you can do that on my Patreon page, where I also post bonus content. So every time a person mates, bonding takes place. And whenever that bond is broken through, for example, a breakup. And if you would like to keep up with me in between videos, you can do that on my Instagram. But the absolute easiest way to show your fellow human being support is to like this video. It does really help me out a lot. And subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and click the bell notification button to be notified whenever I post a new video. And don't forget to join our book club. This month we are reading 1984 by George Orwell. We are reading a different book every month. For more information on how to join, check out the link in my description box. And that is it.